That's the best brownie I've ever tasted.
Okay, so we are making brownies today, and I stumbled across a video on TikTok that explained some tips and tricks about making brownies. And one of them was one of my favorite parts about brownies, which is they kind of have this like really thin crackle film on top of them. And really good brownies, like that film, that like crackly top, like super paper thin top layer, is one of my favorite parts. And so I am gonna show you how to get the fudgiest and the most perfect brownies you have ever made in your entire life today.
Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is get my butter in my pot so that I can brown it. This is just a cup of butter, and I'm going to mention this in a minute, and then I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of powdered milk. I really like to use the Kerrygold Irish butter. High quality butter makes a really big difference to me, but for baking and things, you don't necessarily need a high quality butter, and if you can only get like store brand butter, perfect. Butter is butter. I just like to be bougie sometimes and use really fancy butter. Okay, so I was browning my butter and I quit paying attention to it. You have to pay attention to your butter, otherwise you might over brown it, which I kind of think I did, but the brownies still turned out great. Then you're gonna add 1/2 cup of cocoa powder. I had to go really quick because I had to turn my my heat off because my butter was getting out of control. But you're going to add 1/2 cup of cocoa powder, and adding the cocoa powder during this step eliminates any lumps from the cocoa powder, and it gives it a chance to like bloom. That's kind of the best way I can describe it. It really like develops the flavor of the cocoa powder. And then you're going to add about 6 ounces of dark chocolate. Another thing is, if you can get Dutch processed cocoa powder. It's supposed to be better. I can't ever find it. So I just use the Hershey brand. I don't think that matters as much, but if you want to be extra bougie, get bougie butter and fancy Dutch processed cocoa powder. So then in a separate bowl, I am going to get 3 eggs. I'm going to crack them into this bowl. And when I was cracking my eggs, I noticed, you can kind of see it, I got a little bit of shell in the bottom in my bowl here. And so how I get shell out of situations like this is you just use the eggshell to scoop up the little bit that you got in the pan or in the bowl. Eggshells are like weirdly magnetized to each other, and it'll just go right in there. It's super easy. Then I'm going to add 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Now I'm going to whisk this. This doesn't take too long, but you want to whisk it until the brown sugar is dissolved. And how I know it's dissolved is I check it with my fingers, and you'll see in just a second. I stick my fingers in, I pinch it, and I rub it around, and if it feels like there's still sugar crystals in there, then I keep whisking. I do this a couple of times, and I did it until it was completely smooth between my fingers. If your hands are clean, there is no reason why you shouldn't be able to stick your fingers right in there and not have to worry about anything. But if that grosses you out, just mix it for 5 minutes or so. Then I added powdered sugar instead of regular sugar because it dissolves immediately. We want the sugar completely dissolved. Then I very slowly added in my chocolate mixture, and I did that slowly so that I didn't cook the eggs on accident, but it did have a pretty good amount of time to cool off. And I added some salt, I added a little bit of flour, and I'm gonna mix that. And once you add the flour, you don't want to mix very much because you don't want to over mix the brownies. You don't want to develop the gluten in the flour too much. So just mix it enough until it's combined, and then I added my chocolate chips and a splash of vanilla extract. I'm going to get that all mixed up. And I used milk chocolate chips, but you could use whatever kind of chocolate chips you like. I bet whole Hershey bar chopped up would be really, really good in this. Look at how dark those are, and they're so shiny. Oh my gosh, these are some of the prettiest brownies I've ever made. So then I got my pan, I sprayed it with a little bit of oil. You want to make sure that you get the corners and the sides really well so that nothing sticks. And then I poured my chocolate in, and my head got in the way. I am not used to filming with an overhead camera anymore. So those are my glasses and my hair. I was really focused on getting these brownies in this pan and trying to get all of the brownie. It was kind of hard. So then I'm going to smooth that around. You just want to make sure that it's like kind of touching all of the sides and that the top is pretty flat.
So here's a recap of the things that we did that are going to hopefully make this the best brownie you've ever tasted. One, we browned the butter, and we used really high quality butter. For applications like this, butter doesn't matter as much, but if you have the ability to get a high quality butter, I really recommend it. Don't look at how messy my kitchen is. It is absolutely a disaster. This is what happens when I cook. Everything just turns into a disaster. And in baking, you generally want to use unsalted butter. We browned the butter. I may have over browned the butter just a little bit. You guys kind of saw. I took my eyes off of it for a second and I turned around and it was like really brown. Powdered milk to add extra milk solids to the butter. That gives it more surface to brown, more flavor. We whipped the eggs and the brown sugar together until the brown sugar was completely dissolved. You saw me check it with my fingers a couple times. I just scooped in, pinched my fingers together, and then felt to see if there were any brown sugar crystals left. And then we used powdered sugar instead of white sugar because powdered sugar dissolves almost immediately. We added our melted chocolate and melted cocoa. The other thing that we did was we added the cocoa powder to the butter, and that really, it eliminated clumps. It allowed the cocoa powder to sort of bloom, to like really develop flavor. We added dark chocolate. I also added milk chocolate chips because I really like milk chocolate. And that was it. So we're gonna cook these. We're gonna bake them at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. And then we're gonna let them rest for an hour before we cut into it. And that is gonna be really difficult for me, but I'm gonna do it. So we're gonna let the brownies rest for an hour before we get them out of the pan.
Ah, that's the best brownie I've ever tasted.